back to Grown Ups the podcast. This is actually the final episode of season 4, and we have a special guest with us today. So we have Tally with us. She is the program manager at Bloody Good Period, which we will hear all about. I'm super excited about that as well. I think it does great things for companies and to make women feel safe in the workplace during that time of the month. And she's also a model, so we've got so much to talk about. You could just quickly introduce yourself, Tally.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Talycia. These guys call me Tally because of like school stuff. So like full name is Talycia because we're friends through friends from school. So yeah, Talycia, pronouns are she, her, and I'm the program manager for Bloody Good Employers, and I also am a model. So yeah, that's me, and I'm just so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you here. So we actually met through Lisa, who we've also interviewed on this pod before. That for those of you who are listening, it's the episode of Miss Mauritius, and she was actually about to compete when we interviewed her in India. So it's so nice that we've been able to do this through a mutual friend. I'm so excited to have you on. We wanted to kind of start off by just taking it back a little bit. Obviously, one of our first big life decisions is around college time, where we're deciding, are we going to college? Are we going to sixth form? Are we doing A levels? Are we going to do an apprenticeship? So we were just going to ask you, how was that decision for you and what path did you take?
Yeah, I think my dog's decided to come and visit me. Like he wants to be part of the episode, but
So cute.
so cute, but so annoying.
The more the
I think
merrier.
honestly, truly, he's the main character. I think for me, when it came to uni, like in college and all of that, and making those decisions, I felt like those decisions were kind of made for me, being like a South Asian girl, like very much so. You're going to college, you're going to uni, you're going to do a degree. Fun fact, I really wanted to go to college to do hair and beauty. Like that was something I really wanted to do. And I remember being in the car with one of my friends at the time and my mum and saying, I think I want to go to college and do hair and beauty. Like I don't think I want to do the traditional route of, university and college and, sixth form. And both of them screwed at me. Like both of them said, there is no way you're going to waste your intelligence and waste your time and energy on something that's not going to be lucrative like in the future. Now I sit here and laugh because I'm like, imagine if I started like hair and beauty in that like 2012 2013 era, started a YouTube account. I'd be a millionaire now if I listened to my instincts. But
I know.
everything
It's so
works out for a
true.
reason. Everything works out for a reason. And I found a way like now that I can balance like both of the creative side of me and the like, I guess, intelligent educational kind of side of me as well. But yeah, that's kind of where it started. And I always had an interest in people from such a young age. So learning about human behavior and stuff. So I went down that route and studied psychology at uni.
Do you know
Love
what?
that.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because I remember I also had this hair and beauty thing. I don't know why. I
Yeah,
have no
Maggie, I'm
idea, but I
shocked.
no, I literally made a PowerPoint of what my salon would look like, and like I had all of these things. I showed my mum, and she was like, no, this is not what we migrated here for. You are going to university." So I fully hear it.
I absolutely love that. That's so good. What would your advice be? Sorry, this is so off-piste. I'm just intrigued. But if someone said they just want to pursue their creative side, but they are crazy logical as well, and they're just gifted and can do it all, would you persuade them to try and do a bit of both, like you've done? Do you think that was the perfect route? Are you really happy that it turned out that way?
I think I am at a point where I feel really satisfied with my life and where
Yeah.
things have kind of worked out for me. But I know that everyone's path looks really different. I
Mm.
mean, I know people in life that got like all A stars at GCSEs and A levels and then went to like different like creative unis instead. And that was a path
Mm.
that really worked for them. And you've got to follow your gut instinct, and if you're in a space where you feel safe to challenge family members and feel safe to challenge your loved ones around you about what you can accomplish and what you can do, then I'm always going to be like, if you can advocate for yourself and you feel safe to do that, do that. But you don't necessarily have to know everything at the age of like 14, 15, 16. You can go and get the degree and do the route that, you know, your parents have laid out for you, I guess. If that's like the only option you're kind of being offered. And then later in life pursue a creative degree or like creative journey, because that's what I did. I waited until a lot later in life, and you know, I'm 27 now, and I feel really lucky actually that I didn't do it when I was 16, 17. I remember wanting to pursue a modeling career at that age as well, but you don't know anything about the world at that time, and you can put yourself in some really vulnerable positions. And because the creative industry is so informal, I would say, like you can put yourself in some dodgy situations quite quickly. And I've heard lots of horror stories. So yeah, do what feels right for you, follow your instincts, and yeah, do what feels safe and comfortable for you. Would
I love
probably be
that.
my advice. Yeah.
I think, be it like social norms, cultural norms, it can be so hard to pursue any career that's not like when you're young as a lawyer or an accountant or something mainstream. And so it's nice to hear someone who actually was like, okay, I'm going to go to university, pursue that route. But as you've got older, you've still made sure your creative side shone through too. It's so nice to know that not that you can have it all, but you can embrace every part of you. And I think that's really inspiring
100%.
for people listening. I love that. I feel like people listening are probably a bit intrigued. The bloody good employer, what was your route? How did you find out about that? I honestly heard about it through yourself and Maggie, etc. But it is so important, so inspiring. Can you tell us a little bit about your route into it, and then kind of what you do, what they do, and the purpose?
Yeah, so weirdly, when I lived in Brighton, I was part of this like social enterprise development program. So like it trained people up on how to learn how to like create their own social enterprise. And I was doing it with like the company I worked for at the time. It was another charity, and my job was to like develop that like social enterprise for them. And the people that were sitting on the call, like it was a small group of maybe 6 or 7 like other charities that wanted to do the same thing. And there was a man on the call and it said bloody good period at the bottom, and I was like, what's that bloke doing, like talking about periods, like what does he know? And then 2-3 years later I see that this company that I like kept in the back of my head was hiring for their like employers change management program. And I was like, I know them, like why do I know them? Looked at that application, looked at it all, and it looked really interesting, and it was in the same level of everything I had been trained for anyway over the past few years. But they were at like a further stage, so they had already created like the training program, but what they wanted was for someone to like develop it further and to like have that creative control. And that was like really interesting to me. And I had just got back off of 3 months in Australia trying to find myself, like
Lovely.
and I came back and found this, and I was like, no, this is sick, like I really want to do this. And I filmed a TikTok as my application, and I got an interview.
No way.
Yeah.
What?
So this is the modern way of work. I love it. That's amazing.
100%. Yeah, so they had like a traditional application process, and I sent them a message being like, I have ADHD, your application process looks great, but would you mind if I filmed a video instead?
No way.
Because I learned a lot about like from doing the work I did before around like inclusion and stuff in the workplace. I learned that you're allowed to advocate for yourself to have like alternative methods of applications. So I just asked the question and they said, yeah, please do. So I filmed a TikTok like answering all the questions, and I came across way better. So recommend that. Yeah, I really recommend it actually, especially if you're going for something like a role where you need to show your personality and your presentation style. And now they've like implemented it as part of the interview process for employers as well. So it's really good. It's really fun.
Wait,
And
that's
it's a cute
so
story.
but I love that because we're always talking about, and a lot of our friends are like constantly applying for jobs, and the application process is so ridiculous for some jobs. Like it's just insane, and it's very one size fits all. When in fact, for you, a video was a better way to illustrate how what you bring to the table, your experience, etc. That's so good though that you were brave enough to say, can I do this instead? Because I think a lot of people, especially coming out of uni, you're like, or out of traveling, you're like, I just need to get a job ASAP. Like I'll do anything. But the fact that you were like, do you know what? I know I'll shine better in this way. and that they were receptive to it, that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, it was really fun, and I got to just yap away. And as you know, like, we love a yap, don't we? So
Listen, we started a podcast because we love a yap. Okay. Yes,
That is
we
such an
do love a
awesome
yap.
story. Even like just you seeing the guy on a call, how it all just like stepped into each other one by one, and it just happened. And now you're here, you're happy, thriving, mental.
no, it's
How do
amazing.
you
And like,
think you apply your psychology degree within this role?
so I did a lot of it comes from like social change theory, I would say, and like understanding a little bit about like what are the things you need to help and support people to understand that what you want to do is make a change, and how you bring people on side to that. So a lot of the kind of training delivery side of things is understanding that you need to meet people where they're at and bring them on a journey, as opposed to just going straight in being like, I'm going to wave a bloody tampon around and you need to, you know, hear me out because I'm a woman who's bleeding and I'm right. Like, that's not how you get anyone on side, right? So is thinking about, okay, what kind of business, what kind of company, what kind of organization am I going into? How can I bespoke or tailor the training program to make sure that they're going to go on their journey to develop like their understanding around menstrual health and menstrual equity in the workplace? So, for example, like if it was like more corporate organization in Central, that might be like more kind of male leaning, like I might not go in as heavy. I might present myself in a very different way and deliver a session on like a more of a light touch basis and apply it more to like their everyday life. Because what I've noticed as well is like a lot of these like corporate men, if I'm going to be honest, like they've got wife and kids at home, and it's very like traditional, and their lifestyle is super traditional in that way, and they like find that they get more out of it when they think about like their real world applications, and then they think about management style after that. So yeah, like appealing to that. But then if I'm going to like a marketing agency, for example, or like a cool edgy like Gen Z millennial company, like I'm going to apply it in a different way and apply the knowledge in a different way. So it's like adapting my presentation style, I guess, to make sure that I'm still like acting for social change, but in a way that feels applicable to other people.
No, that's a really good point. And it's something I do with my role as well, because we're talking about climate change. So you want people to buy into that, but you have to be very aware of who you're talking to. What is it that they care about? What language do they speak when it comes to this topic? So I think that's a really interesting point. Can you tell us a little bit about what Bloody Good Period do and why they're important for the workplace?
Yeah, 100%. So, Bloody Good Period is the overarching charity that supports anyone that needs period products with access to them. And Bloody Good Employers is the social enterprise that's tacked on the side of it that provides support, education, and guidance to workplaces through an accreditation program and like a list of training offers as well, like workshops. And everything that is made, so any profit that's made through Bloody Good Employers is funding back to Bloody Good Period. So while you're able to kind of educate your workforce, at the same time you're also meeting your like CSR objectives by like providing donations to a charitable organization. So it's like a win-win all round, to be honest.
Amazing.
Yeah.
No, that is really cool. In terms of like when you present to people and stuff, it obviously sounds like your role involves a lot of talking, standing up, putting your point across. How have you found that just over the course of your career? Did it always come quite naturally, or have there been things you have to put in place to be like, no, I'm going to do this, I'm going to stand up here and tell these people why this is important?
Yeah, so I did Bollywood dance as a kid from like the age of like 7. So I've always been
Woman of
someone that's
many
very
talents.
comfortable. I've been very comfortable on stage. So like I've never really been scared about being in front of an audience. I think there was definitely an adjustment period, like when I started working for like as a youth worker, and I had to stand up and do assemblies in front of kids, teenagers. I think like genuinely, if you can present in front of teenagers like 15, 16-year-olds, you can present in front of anyone because they will laugh at you. and they all
Yeah.
think you are the lamest person in the world. And that is, yeah, that's how I got my confidence. Perform in front of the people you're the most scared of. And for me, that's probably like 14, 15-year-old like girls, because remember being a 15-year-old girl and being like, any person that comes in, they're just like, what are you talking about? Like, you
Yeah.
don't
Yes.
care. Like, you don't care. And that just, I think, helped me develop a really thick skin. And when I did youth work stuff as well, we had to do a lot of filming, and filming was really hard, like filming promo vids and stuff. So I was constantly like had to redo and redo and redo and learn how to become a good communicator through, like, yeah, just being refilmed and being like, that's not good enough, we need to film it again, that's not good enough, we need to film it again. And I just built up such a like confidence around it after that, because I knew what a good communicator looked like, and I knew what a bad communicator looked like. But I also felt like naturally, like I had a natural like talent in that as well. So it was just like about developing it. So I don't really get nervous anymore as well in front of groups of people. I might get nervous if like there's people I know in the audience,
Yeah.
like if my mum and dad are in the audience or something, or like if I have some friends in the audience, I might be a bit scared. But around strangers, like I just don't care. Like it does not affect me, and I actually really love the feedback we get off the back of our trainings as well, because being a young person doing this as well, you can feel like you're not experienced enough or you're not good enough, and the thing that comes back every time is like, I don't know how you're in your 20s and you're doing this. You come across like you're someone who's really well established in their 30s and their 40s. Like, I can't wait to see what you're doing when you're 40, kind of thing. So yeah, it's really sweet. I do enjoy it, but it was a process, and I do think a lot of it comes from learning how to take criticism.
Yeah, I do think that I completely agree with you. Like speaking to a room of full, I'd rather speak to 500 people that I don't know than 10 people that I do know, because it just like adds that extra pressure. It's like you can be any person when there's people you don't know, but when there's people you know, they're like, oh, we know what you're actually like in the way of what you're saying.
I feel like even as a grown woman, sometimes periods can feel so taboo. Like,
100.
I'm quite open, but there are certain people where I'm like, nah. Do you know, there's days when you're dying and you're just like, I'm not going to tell my boss that is the reason I'm dying. Still, as a grown woman, which I guess is
It's
why what you guys
true.
do is so important as well.
Yeah, it's like the thing that we do, that like the first thing we do is like we'll hide a tampon in our sleeve and be like, does anyone know what's
Yes.
hiding in here? And
Yeah.
straight away everyone's like, yeah, tampon. And then all the guys are looking around like, what? Like they
No.
had no idea that like that was that crinkle noise that they heard, and now they understand like, oh, like this is something that's so deeply embedded in society that like they just don't have a clue. And it's about, for your example, Ellie, it's like not even for you, it's like you're to help your manager like open up the conversation and be like, I've noticed you're not feeling well, and I've noticed that this happens often. Like, is this something to do with your menstrual health? Do we need to provide you with something to support you? Like, do you know what's out there, like as part of your workplace health plan, or like your flexible working setup? Like, is there something that we can offer you? So it's about proactivity from your manager as well, because it can't all come from you. Because yeah, you're moody and you're like periody and you're hurting, and you don't want to be like, I'm on my period and I want to go home. Like, because
Yeah.
it can feel like you've got that like societal thing of like, I feel unprofessional.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
The
so
stigma.
weird.
Yeah. It's
It's
not
so
fair.
true, but that's why it's so good to hear that you are speaking to teenagers and getting
Mm.
this mentality from the get-go. Because I remember even in school, like, so I think people don't understand. Some people have really bad menstrual
Mm.
cycles. Like, some people it's
Mm.
fine, but some
Mm.
people, like, they wouldn't be able to do PE or whatever, and teachers would shout at them, like, that's not an excuse to not do, like, your leg's not
Yeah.
broken or whatever. And it's so then you kind of grow up with this. And when you're in the workplace and you genuinely, like, wow, like, I'm seriously impacted by my period this week, but you
Mm.
don't feel comfortable to say that in the workplace, that like I need to work from home today, or I need to have some time out for a second because I'm in serious pain.
Yeah.
So I think the work that you're doing is so important to make it a safe space for people who do have a menstruation and have a terrible one at that.
Thanks.
Super important. I actually love it. And I love the fact that you're on here today and we're sharing this with people, because I feel like just so many people don't talk about it enough, and it's super important. But taking it a little bit sort of into a different space, but not entirely, in terms of just the NGO space, I actually weirdly have more friends now that are moving into the NGO sector. But what advice would you give to someone who wants to join an NGO, or wants to really find a role with some sort of purpose, or more so a purpose than like a standard corporate sector job like myself?
Yeah, I think particularly like when you're talking about transitioning from corporate to like an NGO as well, that's so hard because it's so different. I feel like when you're working for corporates, there's like a team for everything, whereas there is one person that covers about 5 different teams when you work for like a non-profit or an NGO. And like, yeah, it's not, it's, I think like the best thing to go into it with is like have an open mind and be flexible, because I don't think I would have been able to have such accelerated growth and development and be like a manager at the level I am now if I didn't work in non-profits, because I was able to just like kind of cherry pick like what I wanted to work on and what skills I wanted to develop from having worked in charities over the past few years. So yeah, that's probably what I would say, is just have an open mind and be really flexible, but also like at the same time know what your boundaries are, know what you do want to do and what you don't want to do.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I've only ever worked in the NGO space because I've been only at this one company. But I remember when I joined, we didn't have an HR, we didn't have an IT team. Like they were just, and you kind of, everyone was just figuring it out along the way.
Mm.
And I think the thing about managing expectations, but also respecting yourself, because I remember when I wanted a promotion and being told, well, you know, we're an NGO. It's like, yeah, but you still can do career development. Like that doesn't mean anything. So I think it's very cautious to manage your expectations in terms of, okay, maybe they won't be able to pay you what a big four will pay you, but you still are allowed to progress in your career regardless. So I think that's interesting. One thing that we're really interested about you is that you also model, which is, I don't even know how you do that on the side of a job that sounds quite intense, anyways. How did you get into that and why did you want to go into that space?
So I think I was always told by random uncles at Indian events when I was a kid. And like by my mum as well. And like my mum's not one to gas me, and like she's not one to gas anyone. She's actually quite a strict woman. To like, you know, you should be a model, you should use your height, was always what I was told. You should use your height. You might as well use it. You're so lanky, you might as well use your height. And I'm
Thanks.
5'8", but like from like in the South Asian community, that is tall, right? So all of my friends, all of my like peers were 5 foot, 5'2", and I would stick out in every picture and just be like really tall, really lanky. And everyone was just like, you might as well just use it. You've got such long legs. Like, why don't you just use them? And I was like, what does this mean? Like, what does use them mean? And I also had a teacher at school like that used to say it to me a lot. And then I went down the rabbit hole when I was like 16, 17. I think that's when most people will like choose to apply or get scouted. And I just wasn't ready. I was really insecure. I was really like, I didn't feel comfortable in my skin, and I wasn't ready. And but I like kept it again in the back of my mind for ages. And like I said, I was always interested in the beauty space and always interested in, you know, what beauty is and what that like what function beauty has in society. But like I knew I wanted to do something that like subverted that. So when it got to, I think it was 2023, I want to say, again came back from Australia and was like, let me just see what this looks like, let me figure this out. And I was doing some freelance EDI consultancy at the time, and I was supporting a client, and they were a model as well. And I was like, oh, like, do you think you could help me take some pictures? So she helped me take some pictures. And yeah, I sent them off to 2 agencies, and both agencies got back to me like the next day. And I went with one and didn't have the best experience, and then kind of went to the other a bit later. And yeah, it was really fun. And it is nice to be able to have both at the same time. And because my work at bloody good period is like flexible working. I'm able to kind of let them know with enough notice, like if I've got a shoot, that I can do the shoot and then I can work around it. So yeah, it is wild. I'm not gonna lie, like it is wild doing both, but it's so fun. Like I get to just play in front of a camera and be silly. I had a shoot on not last Friday, but maybe the Friday before, and this photographer took me through this like process of like, she wanted really cheesy ones, really silly faces, and then she was like, can you do some sad ones? I was like, I can cry on command. So I just cried on command for her. I was like, I have got enough to cry about right now, so I will just use it and use it as material. And it, yeah, just, I think it helps so much. Again, it's like understanding human behavior. Like you learn how to like use it and externalize it for yourself as well, like particularly through like taking pictures and videos and stuff like that. So yeah, it does all link. Like it's weird, but it does all link. It all comes back to understanding people and what they need from you and what you can offer them.
It's really nice to hear because you were saying that at one point you weren't confident and now you're a model. Like one would presume that to be a model you need to have that confidence, which leads me on to the question of when you are in front of the camera and the attention is on you, what is it that's going through your head to make sure that you deliver one what the photographer is expecting, but you're also authentic to you and you feel the confidence to be able to like, yeah, actually I deserve to be in front of this camera, like I'm bringing something to this shoot.
Yeah, I definitely had that moment. I think it was last year, almost like a year ago actually, when I went to Paris for a shoot. It was like for a PR event and they needed us to do a runway, and I'd never done a runway before, and I did feel out of place, and I was like, I don't know if I belong here. I don't like, and there were 20-30 other models there as well that I was like, wow, you all actually look like models. But then the people that were like, that I was like admiring would like stop and like stare at me and be like, you're so beautiful. And I'd be like, are you good? Like me. And like, you're like a god to me. Like, I think you're stunning. And it made me realize that everyone has imposter syndrome. So what's the point in like feeding into that? Because everyone's thinking that this person's prettier than me, this person's got this and I haven't. And actually the best thing you can do for yourself is be like, these are my features, this is what I've got to work with, and these are the ones I like. And I used to have such an insecurity about my nose. I used to beg for a nose job like when I was 16, 17. And I ended up just being like, okay, cool, I'm just going to get a piercing in it and run with it and just adorn it. And now I didn't like my arms. I thought I had really big like arms, and now I have tattoos on my arms. And I've learned to like, if I don't like something, I'm going to celebrate it even more. And that's what's really helped me with my confidence.
I love that. That's incredible.
That is really cool. I've not heard of that before. That's so cool and so unique. And girl, yeah, we're not even gonna stand here and you're gorgeous.
So are you guys.
I feel like you've said some really nice parts about modeling actually that probably a lot of people don't talk about. There are some really positive sides and some really beautiful elements to it in terms of people bringing people up. But also we're aware, as with everything in the world, there's pros and cons. And the industry sometimes can be a little bit critical. In terms of that side, and it probably has come from your other job as well, standing up, speaking, etc. But how did you develop that thick skin and coping with any rejection or any criticism whilst modelling?
Yeah, so I think for me, it was picking the right agency was the main thing. Like I'm not a traditional model. Like I don't look like the traditional face of like what you think a model looks like, or a traditional body type either. But I went for agencies that like celebrated uniqueness and celebrated like the new face of what we want models to look like and feel more like approachable and real. And that's what's helped my confidence, because I can go on the homepage of like my modeling agency and I'm like, okay, cool, like I don't feel like I stick out like a sore thumb, or like I see people that have similar features to me and they're being celebrated in the same way. And it's always been about subverting the norm for me, like doing what people don't like traditionally want to see or traditionally want to like think of as beautiful, and then do that, because it's about like reframing the narrative. So yeah, I think that's where I was able to, like, I guess, skip past some of that stuff that's difficult around the industry. And because we're in London as well, like, it's so much calmer, it's so much cooler, and you are celebrated for being weird and celebrated for being a bit different. And that cookie cutter version of like a 5'10" really slim model um isn't really what like clients are looking for at the moment. Like, from what I've seen, is like they're really looking for like real faces and unique faces. So yeah, I think the industry is just at a point where I felt comfortable like partaking in it.
And do you think you get to celebrate, as a South Asian woman, do you see a lot of diversity even within your own community in that space? And do you see that as something that gets celebrated in the modeling industry today?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even just women for me. I feel like I've just seen so many hot brown models. Like, it's so lovely to see. There's really a moment, like, in my head, and like to like my friends and stuff, I said 2024 was the year of the brown girl, because just in creative industries, like, we have seen like the rise of so many gorgeous brown people. We had Ambika Mod, like, from One Day. Did you watch One Day? Like, she's
Yeah.
flown, right? We've had Simone Ashley, like, she's flown. And there's so many brown models that are like really going ahead. Like, there's brown male models that are really going ahead at the moment in the States as well. And it's just so nice to see that it's happening for us, because I feel like the trope of like a South Asian person is like the nerdy person in glasses that gets all A stars and studies maths and then goes into like computing or becomes a doctor. And it's a stereotype, because a lot of the time, yeah, it's true, but like there's so much diversity within a culture that like it's so good to see that that's being celebrated as well. I
Yeah.
think we're really going to see a rise in some really incredible South Asian talent over the next few years as well. So I'm looking forward to that.
Can I ask you something a bit off script? Just because I'm Brazilian, but I was born in the UK, and really identify with my Brazilian side, but I have this sort of, I don't know, this weird thing about my identity, especially when I go to Brazil, because people see me as a British girl who's really privileged, when that's not the case, because they don't know I'm from Croydon, like they don't get it. But because I'm in the UK, they think,
Yeah.
wow, like she's. And then here, there's another thing, because I'm not fully British, so I have this Brazilian side. How do you, how do you, I don't know, how do you view your identity with being British, but also being Asian and having that culture within you?
Yeah, I think I'm like the same as you. I was born in the UK. My dad was born in the UK. My mum was the one that was the one that emigrated to the UK when she was younger. So we're like as British as you can get, to be honest. We're, like, for brown people, like, we are like cemented on like this soil. But like we do have a huge part of like our lives that are really Indian. And I I guess even with like dating and stuff, like I wanted to always be with someone that understood my culture, like embedded my culture as part of theirs, or like they shared the same culture as me, because it was such an important part for me, and it still is a really important part. I think that sometimes when you are like a South Asian person, or like someone that has like a culture outside of British culture, you can feel like you don't really fit anywhere. Like, when I went to India, I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb. But I felt the most like at home I've ever really felt, because I just was surrounded with people that looked like me. And, you know, yeah, okay, I looked a bit more like British, I guess, because I was wearing like, at that point, like high-waisted Joni jeans. Like, this is 2017, from Topshop. And yeah, like little like Ralph Lauren t-shirts, or a little Guess t-shirt or whatever. So I looked like a bit more like you said, like the privileged person. But I've never been someone that hasn't felt comfortable in their like brownness, and haven't felt comfortable in my skin. But I think that's also to do with like your family influences. I'm really lucky that I've got a lot of family and a lot of close knit, like a big close knit community around me, that has allowed me to like celebrate that in spaces where maybe I wouldn't have been able to do that. Like at school and like with my friends, I didn't really talk about like my brownness or my South Asian identity until like I started dancing at school. But like outside of school, I was really comfortable with it, and only recently really have I started having like really lovely friendships with other South Asian people that I'm able to sit there and like watch Bollywood films with them, or you know, learn about other parts of like Indian cinema and Indian culture that wasn't necessarily like where I was brought up. So I think it's an ongoing journey of like figuring out like, okay, you're never going to fully fit in somewhere, but isn't that a blessing in itself that you've got your own space?
Yeah, 100%. No, I love that answer. I just think it's really interesting speaking to people who do have one parent or both parents who are immigrants, but then grew up in this country, so they have that blended culture. I think it's a blessing. I completely agree.
That was such a nice way to end off, like just learning a bit about you. And girl, if you ever want to come back on, I have so many more questions for you, but we won't keep you here all day. It's just so nice listening to your story. So, in terms of why we created this pod, let's be real, because I was dying about being a grown up. I was really struggling.
Honestly.
But we love to learn about people's journeys, where they've come from, where they're going, and just how they're finding really being grown and navigating this world. So one of our questions is the fact that discovering your 20s can be rough, but also beautiful in a different way for everyone. So how would you kind of define your 20s? Yeah,
Thus far.
floor's yours. Yeah, how would you define these years for you? What have they been like?
That quote from Kylie Jenner came in my head of just like years of realizing things. Like it's just the, like
Yes.
consistent years of realizing things, and yeah, just learning about myself, learning what boundaries are, learning how to talk about my emotions, learning how to say no, I think was a big thing. I think when you are like eldest daughter, you just don't really learn how to say no, particularly if you're from like communities that are like not from I don't know, like people of the global majority, I guess. Like you just don't learn how to say no. So yeah, it's definitely been boundaries, learning to say no, learning what my values are, learning what my non-negotiables are, and what treatment I would stand and not stand, mainly. And that's like across the board, that's work and everything.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and I think it's also the realizing things thing is so real though, because it's like also you realize that you change your mind, and that's okay as you get more awareness of what you want and what you start to step away of what you traditionally might have always said yes to, and you realize actually this isn't serving me anymore in this new phase. I feel like your 20s you change so much, and you should. I think that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, and that means realizing that actually that used to serve me when I was 22, but now as a 25, 26 year old or however old, that might not be the case anymore. So I think that's really interesting. If you were to picture 10-year-old Tally, what did she want to do, and how, apart, I don't know if the beauty school thing was still a thing, but as a 10-year-old, how does that differ to what you're actually doing now?
I always get teary when I think of 10-year-old me, because I think of like me when I was sat there like as a kid in front of like watching the Disney channel, watching That's So Raven, and then sitting there like drawing my little fashion designs. Like that's what I did. That's what I wanted to do when I was like, I always wanted to be creative. And why am I getting teary? And like,
I love that.
I just think that like I would love me now and be really proud of me now, because I did what I wanted to do and I made it work, and I made all the people, oh my god, I'm actually gonna cry, like made all
It's
the
a safe
people in my
space.
life
Yeah,
proud.
there's been many tears on this pod, don't worry. So
yeah,
many.
like I don't know, like I made the people in my life proud of me, and I made myself proud of me, and I didn't really know that like me being proud of me was like even a thing then. Like it's not a concept that you can even think of as like a 10-year-old. But yeah, I do think about giving her a big hug a lot. I
No,
love inner child stuff.
I love inner child stuff, and something that I like a couple of years ago, I was talking to one of my friends about it, and it's like trying to do things today that would make your inner child happy. And I remember a few years ago, I dyed my hair pink because I was like, my inner child would think that's so cool. What the hell? But also, like other things, it translates into so many things. So I think the fact that you've recognized that you're proud of yourself, and that's not even something that you knew could be a thing or you even really thought about as a 10-year-old is really beautiful. I love that.
You've obviously achieved bits already, and you're still so young. So as you said earlier, there's so much more you're going to go on to achieve. And I'm so proud of you. Like me barely knowing you is so beautiful. But if you could give that little girl any piece of advice at all, what would you say to her?
Know your worth.
Yeah.
Know that you're like, are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Know that you're fucking lit, and people don't deserve your time and energy if they just don't respect you, like, massively. And leave workplaces if they don't respect you. Leave friendships if they don't respect you.
I think that's such good advice. And I think, like, for me, as someone who's a bit of a people pleaser, I'm really trying to. The saying no thing is so hard. Like, I remember, I think I was telling you, Ellie, that um, it was something so simple, like a dinner that I just didn't have the energy for. I didn't want to do it. And it took everything in me to cancel. I was like, I feel so bad. And like, I just, it's so, but it's something that someone would probably be grateful to have a cancelled plan because people are so busy. But I think it's about knowing your worth and knowing that your energy is it's worth protecting that. And if something's not serving you, don't do it. But it's definitely a life thing that I think you definitely have to just learn. But the sooner you know, the better you can start doing something about it. Would you say that there's, if you had to pinpoint one, a pivotal moment that helped to shape you into the person that you are today, that gave you that confidence that you needed to be a model, that gave you that self-worth that you feel today? Would, if you had to pinpoint a moment, what would that be?
I think for me it's not like one particular moment, but it's lots of little moments of like, so weird. I was talking about this with my friend yesterday of like, what things do you do to like show up for yourself, to prove to yourself that you can like trust yourself to make good decisions. And I think it's like any moment or any time that I like prove to myself that I can make good decisions for myself and like follow through on them, or like trust myself to make good choices. Like, I am now someone that feels like, I feel like I'm a really good judge of character. Like, I'm not someone that will put myself in a space where, you know, I feel like my energy is going to be drained or anything like that. Like, but I like forgive myself for the past versions of me, like when I was a lot younger, that I didn't know how to like judge character, maybe because I was like a bit sheltered, like growing up and stuff, that I just thought that everyone had the best intentions. So yeah, I think probably like all those little moments of like being like, oh, okay, like this is how I find out who I am as a person, because I figure out like, what do I trust in myself, what are the things that I like know are my strong suits, what are the things that are my weaknesses that I want to work on, and just continuing that journey.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect answers all around. We always ask one question to everyone who comes on the pod, for our kind of grown-ups, because we're not sure we're even there yet. But is there any point in life or any stage where you were like, damn, I'm a grown-up. I've got this. I feel like I'm an adult now. You might not, but we'll end with this last question to you, and you can let us know. Yeah, are you there yet?
There was a shoot that I did actually a few weeks ago. It might have been a month ago now. And I think I was saying like, it's the one where they made me cry like on command. They didn't make me, but like I wanted to show off and see if I still could cry on command.
Yeah.
Still got it.
Seeing those pictures like a couple of weeks later, I think I posted them on my story, and I was like, oh my god, like I feel like I'm finally like in the position where I'm the woman that I always wanted to be. Like, when I thought about like a 27-year-old woman, or like when I was a kid and I thought about what do I want to be like when I'm older, I wanted to be this like put together person that like knew what they wanted, knew what they were looking for, and were really sure about themselves. And I feel like I'm not 100% there, don't get me wrong. I've still got loads of learning, loads of growing, and loads of development to do. But like the fact that I'm so open to that and open to knowing that makes me feel like I'm really grown into like a woman that I love, respect, and like admire. So yeah, I think that shoot probably, and like seeing those photos after, really like cemented to me that I feel really good in myself, and I feel really proud of myself.
I love that. That's such a beautiful note to end on. And I have to say, I mean, the work you're doing in at Bloody Good Period is so important, and I'm so glad that you're involved in that. But I love that you get to feed your soul as well by doing modeling and really making sure that you're filling up that inner child. I think there's one picture that you posted once. It's a black and white one, and it just radiates positive energy. Like it just I don't know how to describe it. Like when I saw it, I was like, wow, like it's obviously beautiful, it's obviously gorgeous, but it like radiates such positive vibes. Like it's just amazing to see what you're doing. And thank you so much for giving up time on your Saturday at that
Yes.
to speak to us. I think this is going to be a really interesting episode, and we really appreciate you coming on.
No,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Everyone listening to this, just know that there is no time, there's no right time to be an adult. We're all learning and growing, but just be kind to yourself. And yeah, look forward to seeing you next season, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.